Hey everybody, Father Scott Vanderveer here with another installment in our series on the season of creation. So our late Holy Father, Pope Francis, wanted us to understand that the earth was created by God and belongs to God. That our huge honor has been to have stewardship and dominion over that creation, and that requires constant vigilance. That's like owning a home or a boat. We have to work on it all the time. It doesn't run itself except into the ground. So we know that the earth in these post-industrial times requires a lot of attention because we can harm it even without meaning to. But by polluting it, by having accidents that befoul its waterways or fill the air with fumes that can't be breathed by animals and humans. So we have to take some responsibility for doing whatever is needed. And we must keep our ears open, our eyes on the search for what is needed. There is a temptation, and there always will be, for us to pretend that we don't know. Who, me? What? What are you talking about? No, I don't know what you're talking about. And we see a lot of that in our society. A lot of people either choosing to not learn more about what is going on or feeling too threatened by how those implications would affect their life or their business if they have one. So we're in a time where there is some true ignorance and there's also some willful ignorance about what it means for human beings to be given responsibility for the earth. Those are hard facts for us to grapple with. It's not easy. We would love to be coming of age in a time when taking care of the environment around us was not a concern. Adam and Eve certainly didn't worry about that. But we're always responsible for the times in which we live. That's part of being human. That's not strange or new. Humans have always had to tend to the times in which they live. So we're being invited to consider the times in which we live. There was a great Native American saying that was a huge part of the period of colonization in the northeastern part of the United States. And it has been attributed to a number of different Native leaders. So I'm not actually sure if I know the exact attribution of this phrase, but it is very simple and very clear. This was the phrase: only when all the trees have been defoliated, only when all the rivers have been polluted, only when all the animals have been killed or made extinct, only when all the fish are gone and all of the birds of the air and all of the animals of the land, only when everything is gone and the last tree has been cut down, will we finally realize that we cannot eat money. Ooh, that is so important for us to hear, especially if you're watching this in my home country, which happens to be the global superpower, the one with the biggest economy, at least by most measurements, the one with the biggest military force, the one with the most influence in the world scene. We are very, very benefited by having wealth. And only when we realize that wealth is not the ultimate command of God. God told us to have dominion over the earth and to take responsibility for taking care of creation. God said nothing about being very wealthy being a part of that. So we are being called to consider that our faith is intimately connected to God's gift of creation, and our faithfulness is intimately connected with how we interact with that gift of creation. We're being told that right now, the climate is warming at an alarmingly fast rate. And that has to do with what we've heard is increased carbon emissions, many of which are the results of the accumulation of the industrial progress of the era that we've been in. Like anything in life, anything good comes with a downside as well. And part of our prosperity, which has brought so many people out of poverty worldwide, part of the blessing of that is that it comes at a great toll for the earth because we use resources at a very high rate. And we're not using them in a way that they are able to be replenished. They're not renewable. They're not sustainable at current levels. And so we are watching the planet warm 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, that might not sound like much, but you know what it's like to have a temperature of 98.6. And 98.6 is a fantastic temperature to have. If you were to have that temperature go up 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit is all it is. So instead of having a 98.6, if you were instead 100.7, you feel lousy. You feel like a dish rag. You can't focus. You can't, if you get to a temperature like that or above, you can't read. You know when you feel like you're in bed and you're like, oh, I don't feel well enough to read. Here I am bored. I could catch up on so many things. I'd love to catch up on all my podcasts, we might say, but I'm feeling too crummy to listen at that rate. That is fascinating for us to know. That means that we are experiencing a little taste of what the earth feels when it warms beyond normal levels. Now, if this were completely beyond our control, we would just have to adapt. But what the overwhelming majority of scientific scholarship agrees on, overwhelmingly, is that human decisions, human lifestyles are contributing greatly to this. And so it is up to us to figure out, how are we going to adapt? Pope Francis has said that it's very important for us to make sure that money is not our top priority. He said once, why is it that when the stock market loses a point, it makes headlines? But when a poor person dies of exposure to the elements overnight, many of us will never hear about that. He said it shows that our values are being directed too much toward money and prosperity. So those are some very interesting challenges he offers us. And he gave us a bit of a blueprint for what we can do spiritually and practically to make a difference in this. And so as we consider the challenge, now it's time for us to focus some of our thoughts on what it would look like for us. What have we seen people do that would allow the earth to breathe more easily, for that temperature to come down? What is the cool washcloth, so to speak, we can put on the forehead of the earth? What a great thing for us to consider, because only when we have gone too far will we realize that money makes a great servant, but a terrible master. Thank you for joining me on this journey, especially for the challenging parts. Pope Francis is proud of us for being brave as we do this work. May God bless you, those you love, and this beautiful creation God has given us as a gift and a responsibility.